What's up everyone? Welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. This episode we're going to be taking a look at a piece by the AI Generative artist, digital painter, as well as photographer Stephen Young. In this episode we're going to be talking a little bit about divinity through scale. We're going to talk about short stories, both used as prompts and literally, and we're also going to talk about the profound power of OpenAI's DALL-E II. So let's jump right into it. So whenever you first see this work, we see what appears to be this massive monument or some type of what almost looks like a spaceship, but it is a monument or a monolith hovering over this kind of medieval village here. And it really does dwarf the village. Of course, we're given this grand sense of scale. And in the context of scale, you'll notice it really just dwarfs the village or the town under it. And of course, this is set in juxtaposition through that. And it really does draw the eye. Of course, we have that kind of dark on light contrast really draws the eye. And then farther down, we have kind of a light on dark contrast also drawing the eye as well. And so with the incredible scale that we're looking at, of course, this appears to be our main subject. That really does show the divinity of this destination to the densest degree possible. Of course, if something is so large, there is kind of a divine or a kind of meta, a greater element to that that's really important to note whenever we're taking a look at this work. And so also we see in the realm of color, mainly kind of this blue-purple foundation here. We do see some streaks of kind of a peachy orange. We also have orange more down there, some greens, some kind of hints of gold or yellow as well. But definitely the main kind of foundation of the work at hand is going to be that kind of blue and that purple aesthetic for sure. And there's also a sense of color-based rarity within the work at hand as well. Of course, these are some of the most rare colors within the work, so that really does draw the eye. And they're also bit more kind of deliberate magenta or purple tones as well. That color-based rarity does kind of reinforce that sense of divinity that we're feeling, but it also draws the eye, of course, down there. And it also draws the eye through that light on dark contrast that we mentioned. Of course, you're in kind of the mountainside here, and within that valley of the mountain, you have that it's just stunning, lucid light on dark contrast. So that definitely draws the eye, and it's really important to note as well. And so in the realm of texture, we see kind of the smoother facing around here, say on the monolith. And then we also have, say, kind of the more rough or the fluffy kind of texture that we normally get with clouds. So we kind of have the monolith and the mammatus really drawing our eye for sure. So that's kind of the main texture that we see. And also what contributes to texture is this the medium, of course, it's AI generative art, but it does have this kind of painterly aesthetic to it. So it does feel like a digital illustration for sure. And with that in mind, since it's in that medium of kind of digital paint, it does add to the texture as well for sure. And we also, of course, we talked about color-based rarity, but there is this sense of the rare as well. This massive monolith feels very rare. It feels divine. It feels greater than life. And it's really hard to put in words personally, but we see just a divine destination for sure, and it just hovers over this. It's the village is so small that we can't really make out any set forms. We do have the lights of the village, but that is just, of course, dwarfed by the massive monolith. And so this piece was actually created with a short story in mind. So I have the original prompt and the original piece that we used for variation. So I'm going to bring that up real quick. All right. So the piece on the right here, this was the original work generated by DALL-E II. And this is actually generated using the prompt, electric monolith in the center of a medieval town in the mountains, fantasy art, digital art, contest winner, highly detailed. So we definitely see that electric monolith in the center of a medieval town, definitely kind of the hillside there, definitely in the mountains, and definitely feels like a fantasy piece of art for sure. And it did interpret that as a digital painting as well. I think it's really interesting. Maybe that's a testament to what we normally see with fantasy art, typically going to be like a digital painting, digital illustration, set in contrast to something like science fiction. It's going to be a lot more like the digital rendering. So with this in mind, we see how that original prompt created this original piece here. And then he actually ran variations of this original work in DALL-E II as well. So you can ask the AI to create as many different variations as you like. And this appears to be one of the variations that was created. So we definitely see the influence and the similarity. Of course, it is a variation of this original image on the right, but here is the final image that we get. And so this prompt up here, talking with the original artist, actually said that this is part of a short story. It's very condensed. Of course, we don't have, any character names, any massive themes, but we do have that set and setting and kind of the aesthetic, the genre, and the environment for sure. So with that in mind, that is kind of that condensed short story that he decided decided to put into DALL-E II. And it's just an amazing result that we're looking at for sure. So be on the lookout for that. Like I said, the artist is Stephen Young. If you guys want to check that out, I'm sure the short story will be out very soon. I'm sure he's working on that. So that's really interesting how he takes the prompt. The prompt is actually the condensed short story, almost like a summary or an outline of that story, and then that's what he uses to create that. So really, really interesting, and you can definitely see how, of course, a very smart creative can use AI alongside their creative endeavors to kind of fuel their imagination to, say, picture what they like to see pretty much instantly. DALL-E II is incredibly fast in the way it renders, so that's really, really cool to look at. So next I want to talk about a little bit about fantasy art. So fantasy art in and of itself is rooted within the medieval time. And so medieval time is, absolutely insane. You had, of course, the Middle Ages. You also had, say, castles. You kind of have a little bit of influence of things like potions, alchemy, things like that. And there's also a massive revival of fantasy art within the Renaissance, or the kind of there is a fantasy renaissance within the Romantic period, or Romanticism. And so that is also important to note. It's incredible how AI can just create these fantasy or surreal scenes. It's just absolutely incredible, and we're really, really blessed to be able to study that today. And also, this piece, of course, is an AI generative art piece, and so AI generative art can create almost anything that you can imagine. The only kind of limit to that is your vocabulary or your articulation, because if you don't know exactly what to type in that text-based prompt, then that could be, say, a barrier, that could be a ceiling preventing you from creating what exactly you want to see. So things like references, pop culture references, certain words, certain aesthetics, certain movements, art movements, genres, everything is really relevant whenever you're trying to create the perfect prompt for exactly what you want to see. So if you're someone who's just now getting into AI art and wants to dive a bit deeper, I would say start writing as much as you can, because it really will help you kind of synthesize the perfect prompt to create what you would like, with whether it's DALL-E II, Midjourney, Disco Diffusion, anything. It's definitely important that it is to work on your vocabulary and to kind of get that to the highest ability that you can. And so, like I said, this piece was also created with DALL-E II. That's how we can tell that the work was created with DALL-E II. It has that really iconic signature in the bottom right. And so that is created by OpenAI. OpenAI's DALL-E II is probably the most powerful, widely accessible AI art generator program that we have. And I would say second best is going to be Midjourney at the moment. But yeah, we're looking at a DALL-E II piece. Definitely some really nice fantasy themes. And it was just a blessing to be able to study that. Also to reference that to those original work, and to kind of see that short story as well. So it's all just really intriguing, definitely an amazing fantasy piece, and it really, really caught my eye. I knew I had to write about it. A lot of the DALL-E II pieces that I'm saying, they seem kind of vague, they seem kind of low energy, but works like this really, really kind of reignite my passion with DALL-E II, and I'm trying to find those kind of diamonds in the rough, if you will. So I think that this piece definitely fits that, and it's just a blessing to be able to study it. So hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. If you enjoyed this episode, go make sure to check out Steve's other work. Like I said, he's doing some short story stuff, definitely a lot of AI generative art. He's also a digital illustrator as well as a photographer. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. My name is Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.